Okay, we're going to do a chain adjustment on a Sinnis Terrain 125. Like me, you've got a chain tensioner on. Just move that out the way quickly. So, oops, Allen key in there. Just loosen it off and move the wheel out the way before you start. You can see how slack my chain is. That's what the slack we've got to take up in a minute. Okay, first thing we're going to do is loosen the back wheel. So on this side you need a 18mm socket, and on the other side a 21mm socket. Or as I do, I just use adjustable wrench. On this side you can see you've got a lock-in cap that you need to take off first. So 21mm adjustable. Just loosen that one off quickly. That's it, you're ready to go. Okay, so holding the bolt on the other side with the spanner. On this side, just loosen the wheel. So take quite a few turns. Try and remember roughly how many turns you've got. It's useful to remember because then you know how much you can tighten it back up roughly. And also you can feel the tension. Okay, when it's fairly loose, you're ready to adjust the chain. Just first off, hold this in the bolt here on the adjuster. You can do it with a 13mm spanner. I've only got a ½ inch, but it's tight enough. Adjustable spanner of 13 inch, just undo the outer bolt there. Do that on both sides. Okay, on this side again the same. It's important that you do hold the inner screw here, because this is what's going to adjust your chain ultimately. So you don't want that to move when you're undoing the locking nut. You can see now that it's quite loose. That's how it's supposed to be, ready for adjustment. Okay, on the back here you can see you've got the adjuster, and you've got a mark on here. Also adjustment marks along here you can see on the arm that's holding the wheel. So when you finish, these should both be on the same kind of area. It doesn't have to be exactly right because these, as you can see, move a little bit, but you've got to be fairly accurate, and you can do a test at the end to make sure the wheel's straight anyway. With the spanner, literally what you want to do is you want to tighten this one up. So I'm going to turn mine a whole 360 degrees. So from experience I know that's roughly about right. As you can see now, the chain's already tight, as it should be. So do the same on the other side. Okay, you want to turn the wheel and find the tightest point in the chain that you can see here. So I've just rotated the wheel. You've got like loose spots and tight spots, and here, if I was to ride on that, that chain would snap. So I've tightened it too much. So I'm going to rotate this back 1/2 a turn, then pull the wheel back. So just turn that back 1/2 a turn. You can see straight away the chain is slacker. And we're looking for about 2 fingers of movement. No more, no less. Once you've done that and you're happy with the chain tension, you want to do this bolt up here tightly, and holding that still, tighten this one up against it as tight as you can without overforcing it. Obviously the idea is that this nut will lock in that nut, and then this wheel won't move any longer. Again, make a note on your markers here, see your wheels are aligned. I've done exactly the same amount of turns here as I've done the other side, so I know that my wheel's fairly aligned. When I finish, I'll just rotate the wheel, and I should see very little sticking points here, and that will prove that it's as straight as it can be. Okay, I've checked the wheels are aligned and I'm happy with them, and I'll show you how I did my final check in a minute. I'm just going to do the wheel up a little bit tighter because I don't want it to move particularly. Because I'm not going to do it fully tight. I'm just going to get it as near as can be, and then I'll show you how I double check that it's straight. Okay, so again, just going to move the wheel around. You can see here, just by me checking the movement here, it gives an indication that the wheel is relatively straight, because the chain isn't being under tension sideways, if that makes sense. If the wheel was like this or like that, you would know there'd be a pressure on here. That of course would damage the chain. So I'm quite happy that's done up, is adjusted correctly. I've done up these two nuts here. This is fairly tight. I'm going to finish tightening this off in a moment, and my markers here are also both aligned. From previous experience on this bike, this marker is just off centre on the left hand side, so I'm not unhappy with that. I'll do one final test on the wheel to make it straight, make sure it's straight, and I'm going to start the engine for that one and show you how I do that. Here all I'm doing is I'm holding something that's relatively easy to hold straight and flat against the wheel. Now if that was being pushed like this, I'm exaggerating, if you had a shet square or something like that, if it was moving, you know the wheel's not straight. Now I'm holding that there, it's relatively straight and it's not being pushed by the bike, so I'm happy that that's straight, as straight as it can be. And you can see here again, obviously be careful, you don't want to stick your fingers in here, but you can see there's no tension on the train from a sideways perspective. So with that done, I'm happy to tighten everything up and finish off. Okay, normally what I do now is I get some WD-40, run it across the chain, and with the toothbrush just clean it all out. But unfortunately I've run out of WD-40 and the chain's reasonably clean anyway, so I'm not too worried. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it some spray of grease, and I'm using this chain wax, which is actually quite good because it leaves a white residue so you can see where you sprayed. Now what I normally do is start the engine and let the wheel rotate, but I haven't got a stand at the moment, so I can't do that safely because my bike rests on its back wheel. So just go around the chain, give it a good coating of grease, not oil, because oil flies off. So it always wants to be a chain grease, chain wax. You can get them from you can get them from Halfords, places like that. Obviously your local bike store. As I use this one because it's very easy to see where you've been. Now the reason I'm putting cardboard behind, so I don't want this to go anywhere near the brakes for obvious reasons. Grease and brakes don't mix. So once you've done that, you've been all the way around. That's it. Just take it for a little ride around the block. Make sure you've got no wobble on your backside, as it were, and you're good to go. I'm going to put the chain adjuster back on. So obviously it hasn't got any tension to take up, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. Make sure of course it's not touching anything, and just do that up until I need it again. So what I'll do is in a few weeks time is I'll put that back under there to take up the tension. Okay, so quick summary. Loosen the wheel. Loosen these nuts by holding the inner nut and rotating the outer nut. That's your locking nut there. Once you've done that, tighten clockwise, half a turn, and that will pull the wheel back. Do the same on both sides. Once you're happy the wheel is straight, do the locking nut up while holding the adjusting nut. Do the wheels back up, put the locking nut back on the other side. Again, just quickly in the chain, make sure everything's turning okay, make sure everything's straight with a visual check. Give it a ride, you're all good to go. Always grease your chain. You're supposed to grease it after every time it rains, but realistically once a week. I've taken the chain adjuster off for now because it's not needed, and I'll put that back on in a few weeks when I'm done. Happy riding.